Hi, my name is Paul, and I wanted to put this together for everybody that knows me, so that I don't have to go over everything every time I want to give anybody an update. Back in October of 2019, I was given the diagnosis of IPF, which is idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, and the doctor that found it was my PCP. She actually, I went in for a refill on some medication that I wanted, and she said that I needed to come in order to get the refill so that she could do a quick physical. Well, during this time, she listened to my lungs, and she said that she asked me if anybody had ever asked me if I had noisy lungs, and I said no. And she says, well, I would like to send you to for an x-ray and see what's going on here, if we need to do anything further. So I said, okay. So that same week, I went to get the x-ray, and after I got the x-ray, 2 days later, she asked me to come back into the office. And so I went. I did get my meds, by the way. And she had sent me to she wanted to send me for a CT. And so that they could take a better look at my lungs, because they obviously found something that she was concerned about. And at that time, they did find that my lungs were rather engulfed, and decided that I should see a pulmonologist and take my films with me to the pulmonologist and have them make a determination of what this was. The radiologist that read the CT had also indicated that it was IPF, and she didn't want to tell me that, but that's what I read on the paperwork. And so when I got home, I looked it up and on the internet, and found out that it's a deadly type of lung disease. And with this is with IPF is, they don't know what actually caused it. There's no way of knowing, because people that have smoked for years get it, and people that have never smoked at all get it. People that have been, indoors in a work environment that have never been exposed to the outdoors also get it, as well as people that work at the airport or any other hazardous condition area that also get it. So it's kind of strange that everybody has an equal chance of being exposed to some toxin that's going to cause the idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Now you're probably wondering what IPF is. It's actually fibroids, which it's scarring in the lungs, and what it does is it displaces the amount of area in your lungs that actually absorbs oxygen. And so mine are probably about, last I found out back when we left, when I first was diagnosed, I had about 48% lung capacity. And since then, I know it's decreased substantially.
Where have you worked that you would have gotten it?
I worked at several places. I worked at a place that I could have got it because I was exposed to a lot of dirt. I was surveying, and there was dirt being kicked up by trucks that were in the area, And so there was always, dirt in the air. And I was thinking that, when I was working there, I always thought that I probably got mud in my lungs. The other place that I worked that I could possibly have got it was from, and they're all environmental, by the way. The other place could have been Orkin Pest Control, because I worked, I was spraying for bugs, and I was exposed to overspray a lot of times. If I was spraying outdoors, the overspray, the wind would pick it up and blow it into my face. And I know that also had some opportunity to go in my lungs. I also worked for an industrial laundry, which is also a place that I could have been exposed to, because I was picking up a lot of contaminated clothing at plastic warehouses that made plastic, other places that made that made things out of plastic too, and the other places, machine shops, which used a lot of solvents, and print shops. And print shops had used a lot of solvents in the printing presses in order to clean the printing presses. So when they're done with the printing presses, they clean them at the end of the day, throw their shop towels into a rag, into a bucket, and then we would pick up the shop towels at the end of the week, and we would take them back, wash them, and bring them back clean. With that is that I was also at a point where I could smell this solvents that were so bad that sometimes I got a little lightheaded from the solvents, and I suspect that probably may have had something to do with it as well.
The airport?
And I worked at the airport for 6 years, and I was exposed to a lot of jet fuel. With that though, is that my dad worked as a fueler at the airport for 36 years, and doesn't have what I have. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. Probably not, because it was outside. So after my diagnosis, we were planning on moving back to California from Texas. In fact, Texas was where I got the initial diagnosis. Anyway, we moved back to California, and at this time, I'm seeing another doctor, another pulmonologist, but I don't have any symptoms. I'm walking a mile and a half a day. I've been walking a mile and a half a day for the last 5 years, and so I never knew that there was anything wrong. I had no idea that there was anything wrong. And one day that, after I got this diagnosis, I still, I was baffled as to why my doctors were so concerned, because I had no underlying condition that I could feel. And
did you ever get winded?
I got winded. I was getting winded as I was walking walking and, for long distances. So then I would just stop, and I just chalked it up to, regular being tired or something like that. I started riding my bike, and I did a lot of bike riding when we moved back to California. And I got to a point where, I was comfortable riding, but I would have to stop and, and catch my breath for a while, and then get back on. Well, my doctor's advice, I used to ride my bike and then stop and take my pulse ox measurement, and I found that my oxygen levels were in the low 80s, which low 80s is pretty bad, because normal is at 90 or above, preferably around 96, 97 is pretty much average for everybody else. But for me, riding a bike, I was 81, 82, sometimes 83.
Why is that important?
Well, because what happens is if you're not if your blood isn't oxygenating by your lungs, what happens is that it starts to break down the cells in your other organs, like your heart, your brain, liver, muscle, and it's just a lot of other things that need, your body just needs oxygen. And my lungs were not offering that. So my doctor asked me to stop riding a bike, and so I got an electric scooter as a result of that. And it's a razor scooter, not a scooter that handicapped people perhaps would use.
And then when did you get worse?
As I was going on from day to day, we moved to California in 2019, December 2019, and then we ended up going through 2020, the first couple of months, and then COVID hit, and so we are not we're not getting out as much. We're in lockdown. We're not doing a whole lot of anything. Just my wife and I are at home, and we're wiping down groceries that have been delivered and things like that. Being very cautious about being exposed to anything, because my doctor told me that most likely if I contracted COVID that I would end up on a ventilator. And back in January of 2021, I had a toothache, and the toothache was pretty bad, and I went to the dentist, and that was the only time that I could figure out that I would be exposed. So at the dentist office, I suspect that's where I was exposed, and the following days we tested, and my wife and I both tested for COVID, and we both tested positive. The way I realized that that I had tested positive, or the reason I knew that I had COVID, was because I couldn't taste anything. I was drinking coffee, and it was like drinking hot water. So that was the first indication that I had COVID. I fortunately did not end up on a ventilator, but I did end up in the hospital, and they treated me with remdesivir, which is a drug that they had used on the most serious cases, and then they also treated me with lots of steroids. So I was there. The reason I was in the hospital for 6 days was because of the medication that I was receiving was through IV, and that's why they needed to have me at the hospital for that long.
So once you got home and you started doing your day-to-day activities.
Once I got home and started doing my day-to-day activities, I couldn't really get around anywhere. I was getting winded getting up in the bed and going to the bathroom, and then I would come back and check my oxygen level, and I was down in the high 70s to the mid 80s, and so I knew that it was pretty bad at that point. So I had gone to my doctor again, and my pulmonologist in Huntington Beach. He's associated with Hoag Hospital, which is where I was admitted into the hospital. With that too, I think that I had gone to the hospital just at the nick of time. I had had a phone appointment with my doctor, my pulmonologist, and he's the one that told me that I need to go to the hospital either that night or the next morning. But he preferred that I go that night because he was very concerned, and I think that I made the right choice by going at night. And it was pretty heartbreaking, for my wife and son that took me to the hospital, because all they could do was drop me off at the hospital and drive away. So it was really a difficult time for everybody to see, you know, because I knew what I was doing, but they had no idea what I was going through, and they had no idea whether I was going to be placed on a vent and or even ever come home. So that was a scary time for them. I did take my phone, and I was in contact with them every step of the way. But I did get released from the hospital, and I went home. And at that point, that's when we started. I needed oxygen. They started bringing me oxygen from. They brought me 16 bottles of oxygen, and I also have I had bought a concentrator, a portable concentrator, an Inogen concentrator, in December, knowing that I was probably going to need it. Good thing I had it, because I needed it all the time. And then they also brought in a house concentrator. So I have a large concentrator in the house that constantly makes the oxygen for me, but I haven't been needing it after the first month or a month and a half. So it's just been sitting in my bedroom for a while.
Can you talk about pulmonary rehab? You did that before COVID.
Yeah, I went through pulmonary rehab on the suggestion of my doctor. My doctor had, little backstory here is my doctor had sent me to, as he does a lot of his patients that are that have the same condition. He sent me to Cedars-Sinai Hospital in order to meet with physicians over there, and they asked me what I need, what I would like to get out of seeing them, and they did look at my X-rays and CTs, and decided that I was not as bad as they initially thought. So they just told me that I should go through pulmonary rehab and see and get some ideas on how to better my oxygen intake. Then that was in June or July of 2020. So I wasn't that bad at that time. I still didn't even realize that I had any lung issues at that time either. But anyway, I've been going to Cedars-Sinai lately, and after COVID, my pulmonologist in Huntington Beach suggested that I go to Cedars-Sinai again in Beverly Hills, and so I started going over there, and then they decided that my lungs were in such bad shape after COVID that I should now, they think that I need to be placed on a transplant list, and so that's where I'm at now.
Are you on the list yet?
No, I'm not on the list yet. I'm still being evaluated because they don't want to obviously give lungs to somebody that's going to reject them. They want to ensure that that I'm not smoking, and they want to make sure that I'm not that my lungs can. They want to make sure that I'm not aspirating into my lungs, which would cause a rejection with that. So I've gone through I've started the testing, and I'll go over the testing as well.